Hello, my name is Jolene Johnson, and I'm going to be discussing information communication technology and its effect on communication in society. Pinch and Baker refer to social construction of technology as the Scott theory. They believe that social groups direct every aspect of technology, that the people are inevitably the ones who give meaning to the technology and decide what they will and will not use. Pinch and Baker also state that it is the people who will decide how a technology will be used, meaning that as individuals, we hold the power to redefine what the technology means and to come up with unanticipated uses for it. Therefore, it is our social practices that inevitably change and alter how technology is developed. It evolves based on what society believes it needs. As distance, time, and language proved to be barriers for communication, it was soon realized that what society wanted and needed was a way to communicate with one another without those barriers being present. Hence, information communication technology, or ICT, was born. In Technology and Society, Building Our Socio-Technical Future, Johnson and Wetmore state, technological determinism is the belief that technical forces determine social and cultural changes. In an ever-changing world where technologies arise and change by the minute, the ways in which the world communicates with one another have evolved right along with it. ICT has shaped how individuals think, feel, differentiate themselves, and act toward one another. At one point in time, communication was limited to people you actually knew. Due to advances in technology, individuals are now able to communicate with millions of people all over the world without ever actually knowing who the person is through the use of ICT. In addition, digital communication has made the art of face-to-face communication a thing of the past. Due to the evolution of ICT, there are now new approaches in regards to education through distance learning. Simonson describes distance education as a typical education system where students are located in remote places and communicate with the educator through interactive means and systems. As stated in the evolution of learning in the context of 3D worlds, distance learning offers efficient learning that does not demand the educator and the student being present at the same time in the same place. This is done through web-based learning management systems, or LMSs, which are commonly referred to as digital class management systems or virtual learning environments. LMSs are widely used for educational and training purposes not only because they are on the edge of technology, but also because they eliminate temporal and geographic restrictions from learning procedure. They offer flexibility during the learning phase. They allow for interaction between educator and students. They provide reusable resources that are easily maintained. They allow educators to manage questions, quizzes, and tests for assessment purposes. They fulfill the relevant requirements and specifications for efficient, quick, and educationally correct teaching. Distance learning has become a familiar and accepted way of learning. Online Report Card, the company responsible for tracking online education in the United States last year, stated that the number of students taking online courses grew from 5.8 million nationally, continuing a growth trend that has been consistent for 13 years. More than a quarter of higher education students, 28%, are enrolled in at least one online course. ICT is the ultimate form of control over the way the world interacts with one another. Johnson and Wetmore state the future will bring with it an increasing number of non-human technologies with greater ability to control people and processes. The rules and regulations of ICT have an enormous amount of control over how people are able to communicate or not communicate with one another, and how many characters their messages can be, clear down to who they're even allowed to send a message to. They also mention that control shifts to the technologies as well as the experts who create and handle them. As organizations gain control over people gradually through increasingly effective technologies, they eventually reduce people's behavior to a series of machine-like actions. Users are always connected to the device and receive instant notifications every time somebody sends them a message, comments on one of their posts, or likes something that they shared. The creators of ICT wanted people dependent on their product, and that is exactly what they got. ICT devices are so integral to our lives that we now actually find them attached to our bodies, in our ear, on our arm, or on our wrist. Society relies on their devices for the whole of their communication to the world and feels lost without it. If their device is broken, lost, or stolen, they are isolated from the world. ICT has provided a wide array of benefits to users. For starters, communication is instant. It can take place 24/7, 365 days a year, anywhere in the world. Messages can be sent to one person or a large group, allowing each individual to contribute to the conversation. Users are able to share resources in order to use ICT. For example, an entire office using a fax machine or a server, a household using a family data plan, homes, schools, and businesses can share their Wi-Fi, and anybody with the password is able to use it. It opens up a broad spectrum of people to individuals who may not have the time or resources to meet them another way. Just as students can go to school virtually, businesses are now able to employ people to work remotely from the comfort of their homes. All you need is access to your company's network and your own internet connection. Perhaps one of the greatest benefits of ICT is the way it has helped those unable to communicate due to speech or hearing issues find a voice. Text-based computer communication can give those with speech or social problems the opportunities to communicate with others. The Journal of Visual Impairment and Blindness states that the introduction of the video phone has brought in social interactions among deaf youths, allowing them independence and joy at being able to communicate with other individuals. In the decades that ICT has been present, individuals throughout the world have taken advantage of the benefits it brings to their daily lives. Digital divide is described as the social inequality between individuals who either have or do not have access to the technology or do not have the skills required to use it properly. In the case of ICT, the technology they need access to is the internet and the device to use it on. According to Contemporary Digital Divides in the United States, a study was conducted to see the internet usage rates for all Americans, and the results showed that a digital divide within the United States was prevalent due to troubling demographics such as socioeconomic status, ethnicity, age, and gender. A few other problems resulting from ICT are miscommunication, as once the text or email is sent, it cannot be undone. Autocorrect and textisms can make understanding what the person is trying to say extremely difficult. As systems upgrade, they become more and more complex, requiring users to learn and adapt all over again. There's an increased vulnerability with emails such as spams and phishing. Service disruptions. If one part of the system breaks down, it can affect many others. Systems freeze. There's no reception in certain areas. Loss of service due to inclement weather. The servers go down, and when that happens, nothing works. ICT has shaped what has become of society, in that we are no more than an extension of our digital devices. Turkle states, I found it is our little devices, those little devices in our pockets are so psychologically powerful that they don't only change what we do, they change who we are. The fact that people are on their devices continuously overstimulates their minds and makes it to where they are bored and cannot function in situations that need their attention, such as school, work, driving, and even parenting. In Adolescence in the Digital Age, Effects and Health on Development, Romer states that one of the consequences of nearly continuous connectivity on digital networks is the potential for distraction while engaged in such attention-dependent activities such as driving, which can lead to accidents. Children text and get on social media during classes. Parents are more interested in what is on their phone than paying attention to their children, inevitably teaching their children that this behavior is normal. ICT is available in a multitude of different forms, including email, texting, instant messaging, social networking, tweeting, blogging, and video conferencing. It has completely monopolized the way society chooses to communicate with one another, as people are more than likely to speak to friends, families, and colleagues, and peers, and professors through electronic devices than face-to-face. Turkle explains, when I ask people what's wrong with having a conversation, people say, I'll tell you what's wrong with having a conversation. It takes place in real time and you can't control what you're going to say. So that's the bottom line. Texting, email, posting, all of these things let us present the self we want to be. We get to edit, and that means we get to delete, and that means we get to retouch the face, the voice, the flesh, the body. Not too little, not too much, just right. By only ever communicating through ICT, individuals never learn the basic fundamentals of conversation. They don't learn to think about what they should say before they say it, to censor themselves. When they feel that everything can be edited or altered in some way, they aren't living life in the real world. You can't edit what you say to a teacher, a coworker, a boss, or anybody else. The option to think out and edit what you're going to say doesn't allow people the opportunity to learn how to have a normal, meaningful conversation with another individual. When communication is never more than a touch away at any given second, everybody is affected by the impact that technologies have on personal, professional, and academic relationships. But who it is affecting most would be today's youth. When children are learning at infancy that it is okay to consistently have a device in front of their face, they never learn how to remove the barrier when the time comes for them to interact with other people. Quality of life is the general well-being of individuals and societies, and according to Sarowitz, The relationship between it and progress in science and technology is particularly difficult to bring into focus because the two distinctive roles that such progress plays in society, catalyzing economic growth and directly solving human problems, are not necessarily complementary. Our economies grow by the development of new and innovative technologies. Human beings' desires for the latest advances in technology benefit our economy as they purchase the latest models. It is never more of a problematic scenario than having to decide if the economic benefits outweigh the intellectual ones. According to Johnson and Wetmore, Japan was a country that valued face-to-face communication and was reluctant to embrace the modern communications, thus putting a great risk to its economy. Since that time, they, like the rest of the world, have come to the conclusion that if economic risk is to be averted, face-to-face communications may have to go. When ICT remains the only source of communication you use, it creates problems for individuals' interpersonal skills and their ability to create meaningful relationship. It can drive a good relationship apart if your neighbor is able to fully communicate with one another. Turkle states it encourages superficial rather than deep thought and to negatively affect intellect and personal relationships. Connecting in sips of online communication may work for gathering discrete bits of information, but they don't really work for learning about each other, for really coming to know and understand one another. We can put on a front an online false identity of who we are without ever actually having people know the real us. Even more problematic than simply not knowing all there is about a person, ICT can lead to catfishing, cyberbullying, both of which are extremely dangerous. As noted by Johnson and Wetmore, a technological system can be both a cause and an effect. It can shape or be shaped by society. As they grow larger and more complex, systems tend to be more shaping of society and less shaped by it. In the last several years, we as a society discovered an increasing need for a way to communicate without barriers. That need shaped the development of ICT, and advancements in the area are being made every day. There's already experimentation on brain-to-brain communication using EEG waves. Advancements in 3D imaging and scanning technologies are making virtual presence a possibility. We may even get to a point where teleportation is as common as making a phone call. The fact of the matter is technological momentum grows the possibilities for how our world will communicate with one another in the future endless. Though there is no real way to stop people from getting on their smartphones to send a tweet or a text, there are ways to encourage them to stay tuned in with the people they are with and engage in meaningful conversations. When out with a group of friends, make bets on who can detain from using their devices the longest. Just like any learned behavior, effective communication is taught at home. Parents need to monitor their children's device time and take them away when they have reached an agreed upon limit. More importantly, they need to teach and encourage their children to have real interaction with people. Schools can enforce classes that concentrate on communication and interpersonal skills, much in the same way that they do public speaking classes. They can also have students take career preparedness classes where they must successfully submit a professionally written resume and an in-person interview. Although technology is often blamed as the root of the problem in our society's inability to communicate face-to-face, there are currently many new technologies that can bring back this interaction. Even with these programs available, they won't be of much use unless there's somebody there to enforce the change, like parents, teachers, or supervisors. A few of these options are Apple's FaceTime, Skype, visual conferencing. Parents can reduce the amount of family data, encouraging their family to stay off social media sites and the internet instead be with the people in person. Parents can monitor how much their child texts. Most cell phone companies have the ability to log into the main account profile and turn on and off incoming and outgoing text messages. This would leave the amount of time younger generations spent texting up to the parent. Parents can make a game out of daily Wi-Fi passwords by requiring their children to commit to other activities before getting the Wi-Fi password. For instance, they must play outside for 30 minutes, must read or play with a friend, etc. When these things have been done, then they can have the password. Current technology could be utilized to address the problems associated with lack of communication by reminding users to communicate, much in the way that Nickelodeon launched their worldwide Day of Play. As digital communication is not going anywhere anytime soon, most of these solutions can only be done if local governments share a common goal to bring back the art of face-to-face communication. It has to be seen as a benefit to all. Parents and teachers would strongly need to work together to make these strategies stand the test of time. Face-to-face interaction is vital to self-evolution. It is not just what a person says, but how they say it, the expression on their face and their body and language all tied together that truly equal a conversation. Learning how to properly communicate both written and orally is essential to a person's personal and professional success.